Hey everyone, and welcome back. So, you've done the hard work and designed the perfect data model. You got the blueprint. But here's the thing, a blueprint isn't a building. So how do we take that design and turn it into a solid, real-world database? Well, that's what we're here to do. Let's get started. Right? This is the big question. You've got your entities, your relationships, all the keys mapped out. But the real magic, the stuff that makes it work, is in the details. How do you translate that high-level plan into a physical design that actually enforces your rules and doesn't fall apart later? That is exactly what we're going to build out today. And our game plan is super straightforward. First, we're going to lay the foundation by defining the properties for every single column. Then, we'll build up the guardrails using constraints to enforce all our business rules. And finally, we'll do a final inspection to make sure the whole design is rock solid. Let's dive in. Okay, so think of this first step like you're choosing the materials for a house. Before you can build anything, you have to decide, is this beam going to be wood, steel, concrete? In the world of databases, that means picking a data type, deciding if a column can be left empty, and maybe giving it a default value. Getting this right from the start is absolutely crucial.
This is always the first question, and it's a big one. It seems basic, but your choice here affects everything: storage space, performance, and whether your data is even valid. Is this column going to hold a number, some text, a date? And does it really matter which database system I'm using?
Well, it absolutely matters. While the basic ideas like integers, text, and dates are pretty much universal, every database management system has its own flavor. SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, they all have slightly different names and syntax. So knowing which system you're building for is key, because picking the right int or varchar is your very first line of defense for data quality. That's a great follow-up, because in the real world, let's be honest, data's messy. Sometimes you just don't have the information. A customer might not give you their phone number, or maybe an item's shipping date isn't known yet. How we decide to handle those blank spots is a huge design choice. And the decision really boils down to two options: null or not null. By default, most columns are happy to be null, which just means empty or unknown. But for the really important stuff, a customer ID, an order number, a primary key, we have to enforce not null. It's a simple command, but it's incredibly powerful. It tells the database, nope, you absolutely cannot create a record without this piece of information. But what if you need a smart fallback? You don't want it to be empty, but you don't always have the info up front. That's where a default value is your best friend. For example, you could set an order date column to automatically use today's date, or maybe a new user's status always starts as active. The database just fills it in for you if you don't provide a value. It's a great way to ensure completeness. So, we've picked our materials with all the column properties. Now it's time to enforce the building codes. These are the business rules that make sure our database doesn't just store data, it stores correct data. And in database lingo, we call these rules constraints. Exactly. This is where we level up from just basic data types. What if you have a product rating column that should only accept numbers from 1 to 5? Or what if an employee type can only be full-time, part-time, or contractor? How do we build that kind of logic right into the database itself so it can't be broken? We handle this with something called a domain constraint. It sounds technical, but it's really just the database's own internal quality check. A domain is just the complete set of all the legal values for a column. The constraint, then, is the rule that tells the database to reject anything that's not in that set. And here's how we actually put it into practice, with a check constraint. This little piece of SQL code builds the rule right into the table's structure. Now, if someone tries to insert a new row where the nationality is Canadian, the database itself will throw an error and reject it. This is so much safer than hoping every single application gets the validation logic right. Now this might be the most important question in all of relational database design. It's great that we have separate tables for, say, artists and their works, but how do we guarantee that every single work in our database is tied to an artist that actually exists? How do we stop ourselves from creating orphan records that point to nothing? The answer is a core database concept called referential integrity. It's a promise, a guarantee that the relationships between your tables will always be valid. It means that if your work table has an artist ID of 10, there absolutely must be an artist in the artist table with a primary key of 10. No exceptions. You just can't have a child record without a valid parent. And we make this happen using a foreign key constraint. This one line of code creates that unbreakable link. It tells the database that the artist ID in this table refers to the artist ID in the artist table. Once that's in place, the database itself becomes the guardian of your data's consistency. No more orphans. Okay, we've defined our columns, we've set up our constraints, we're almost there. It's time for the final inspection. Before we can call this job done, we need to step back and look at the overall structure of our tables to make sure we haven't created any hidden problems for the future. And this process is called normalization. See, if you design your tables poorly, you can run into these really nasty issues called modification anomalies. And they are just what they sound like, weird problems that pop up when you try to insert, update, or delete data. You might have to change the same fact in 10 different places, or even worse, you might delete one piece of data and accidentally wipe out something else you needed to keep. It's a mess.
Let's look at a classic example of the problem and the solution. In the before design on the left, the activity fee is stored with every single student. So if you need to change the fee for skiing, you have to find and update every single student who signed up for skiing. What a nightmare. Now, look at the after design. By splitting the data into two logical tables, the fee for skiing exists in exactly one place. You update it there, and you're done. That's the power of a normalized design.
Now, there are a few different levels of normalization, but for most databases, the gold standard you're aiming for is called Boyce-Codd Normal Form, or BCNF. I know, it sounds super academic and intimidating, but the principle behind it is actually simple. It just means that every piece of data in a table should depend only on the table's key and nothing else. If you stick to that rule, you'll eliminate almost all of those nasty modification anomalies. So let's wrap this all up into a simple, practical checklist. For every table you design, first, choose the right data types. Second, set the null status for each column. Third, assign default values where they make sense. Fourth, add all the constraints you need to enforce your business rules. And finally, fifth, verify that your tables are in BCNF. If you follow these steps, you'll be turning that data model into a truly robust and reliable database.
And that brings me to a final question for all of you. For those who've built a few databases, what's that one little design detail, that clever constraint, that perfect data type, that well-normalized table that saved you from a world of pain months or years later? I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share your wisdom with everyone.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If this helped you think more clearly about turning your own blueprints into solid database designs, do me a favor and hit that like button, share it with a colleague, and subscribe for more deep dives. We'll see you in the next one.